morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Business Morning. I'm Chimezie Obi Iwagu. We'll begin the show with what's making the rounds in the world of business. The federal government says it has commenced discussions with illegal refiners of crude oil in order to have them work as duly recognized modular refinery operators. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachikwu, who disclosed this at the 10th Nigerian Association for Energy Economics and International Association for Energy Economics Conference in Abuja, also says that it would ensure that militancy in the Niger Delta ends by the end of this year. According to him, the ministry's focus was on 7 key initiatives, and he outlined them to include the introduction of new policies that would drive the growth of the oil and gas sector. And the federal government has reduced the number of days required for registration of new businesses in Nigeria from 10 to 2 days. While working to improve the nation's ranking on the Ease of Doing Business Index, the federal government has asked the private sector to tag along. Mr. Enelama, who believes that effort to simplify business registration is gaining momentum once business leaders support for progress.
I don't know. Any solutions we have based on all these years of experience, let's bring them in, because that dialogue is going on now. You know, I thought the form, for instance, was useful. I'm happy to hear that it has no use. And I was actually trying to think of the best to say, what is the use of the form? I'm not an expert, but but if indeed that is correct, let's find out, you know, the basis. Because these people use, they use several countries as example. So, you know, let's investigate it and find out what needs to be done. I agree that addressing infrastructure is key, but again, let me comment on this infrastructure thing. Infrastructure is a stubborn problem for several reasons. You know, whether you take power or you take infrastructure as a whole, but it can be solved. Don't take that as a negative comment. It's basically a call to stay in power. Whenever you start, they say whenever you wake up, it's like your own money. If you want to solve the power problem from a standing start today, it will probably take years. But let the journey begin. You know, and let's work on the key elements, whether it's the financing, whether it's the public-private partnership, whether it's, you know, whatever we want to do. But let's start doing it in a way that we're actually working on projects, something that has a start, a finish, you're doing something about it. There's a lot of talk. Even if you listen to the comments that I made today, they're very good comments. But if you listen carefully, these statements could have been made any time. They remain true. Then so what? We then have to say, then what? Then what? What are we going to do about it? And that's really what we're interested in today. Because I have to tell you that, like, also, you know, in dealing with the private sector, having been there myself, that we do make the right, say the right things, but it doesn't mean that it takes the place of solutions. What I would like us to get to, maybe not today, or certainly in the subsequent thing, is how do we begin to find solutions? We are saying we're prepared to work with you to find them. Civil servants are the real owners, are the real problem. Then what? Then what? That statement, we can keep making it, but it's, it's nice to say if we are in the private sector, but I can tell you that the civil servants, we need to understand the role they are playing and understand how to solve it. Because I have found that statement, while it may be true, it doesn't mean that you cannot find solutions. Because while you are there, even though you are there for a limited period, they certainly have to work with you, because they can't get things done without you. Because the decision rights, at least the material decision rights, rest upstairs. And that's a massive negotiating position. In fact, it's not that different from a company. Right? It's your decision rights that give you leverage. The question is, how can we use this leverage, knowing that are the landlords and we're tenants, how can we use this leverage to get some things done in the window we have, knowing that that window will close? But at least while we have the window, what can we do about it? And I sense that also coming from that is a sense of urgency. There has to be an urgency to say what can be done while we are there.
That was Okechukwu Enelama, Minister of Trade and Investment. And developing a viable financial technology market in Nigeria will require the support of regulatory agencies addressing the emergence of the trend in the country. The Chief Executive of FinTech Associates, Dr. Segun Aino, explains that Nigeria is in need of a regulatory structure to grow the sector.
Government has a lot of role to play, and that's an area that is weak in both government and regulators. If you look at countries like United Kingdom and Singapore that are seen as leaders in the global fintech world, you see a lot of governmental support and involvement in what they do. And that is still lacking in Nigeria, particularly in the regulatory area. There need to be the regulatory framework which does not only regulate but support. For instance, Singapore, like I mentioned, is a very good example. Monetary Authority of Singapore, with the Central Bank of Singapore, provides support and encouragement to, and that is why even within the Central Bank of Singapore, they created a department called the FinTech and Innovation Group and appointed the head of the Chief FinTech Officer, whose role is to see how they can develop the FinTech ecosystem to be able to benefit the banking and financial system. So we need a lot of support from the Central Bank of Nigeria, the regulator. We need a lot of support from the NIC. We need a lot of support from NICON, which is the insurance regulator. Every regulator, we need a lot of support from the stock exchange, from the SEC and so on and so forth. Every regulator has to be able to see this as the next thing to happen, which is essentially happened. PricewaterhouseCoopers in their latest 2017 report on fintech have projected that all over the world, not less than $150 billion will go into investment in fintech. How does Nigeria take advantage of this and bring this foreign direct investment into Nigeria, into the fintech world, to be able to change the economy, to be able to change the environment, and we are also plugged into the system. I said earlier on also that in the next few years, in the next 5 years, about 62% or so, it's been projected by PwC, about 62% of financial services will be done through digital means. That means a lot of buildings that we now have as branches of bank will no longer exist. 40% of business of banks are threatened by this emerging new technology. So it's going to be total transformation of the financial system. But we need to be there. We need that support from government. We need that support from all the regulators, particularly in the financial services sector, and see it not as a threat, but as an opportunity which will grow the economy, which will contribute to job enrichment, which will contribute to new jobs for the society.
And the Lagos State government has redeemed a 57.5 billion naira bond, the second series under the state's initial 275 billion naira borrowing program, which was launched on the 31st of December 2008. The state's Commissioner for Finance, Mr. Adeyemi Ashade, says that at the time of its issuance, the 57.5 billion naira